Hello and welcome to another video. It's going to be more heroica today. I have these new series of ships. It is a new game based on a very simplified Gaslands system. Um, but first things first, I'm going to explain. So the first half of this video is going to go over the actual builds and just the cosmetics, not really anything. The second half is going to be explaining the different rules. I will timestamp that section if you want to skip there, or you can watch it all, or you can watch part of it. It's not important. And secondly, I wanted to cover real quickly that these are not going to be up for a while. Well, these aren't going to be built for a while. I'm going to be quickly taking them down and then shortly doing a update video on my really big heroica world that I made a while ago. And it should include 2 new worlds and a few updated things. But anyway, we'll get to that when we get to it. But yeah, that's kind of the overview. These are all the things. I have a bunch of little health trackers, the ships themselves, of course, and then a bunch of all the figures on the ships. And I guess I'll start going over one by one. Alright, so this is the first set of ships. They have very black and white kind of bone theme. They are identical, so that's why I have one turn front and one turn the back. The only difference is the color of this, because I don't have 2 in this color. But aside from that, like I said, they're identical. The crew on them is different also. This is a bunch of, Urukai figures, but I don't really know what they're supposed to be for. Monsters. We have the vampire figure, and then 3 zombies. Yeah, 3. And then these are some not orcs, they're goblins that are working with them, maybe working for them, I don't know. I just didn't have enough of these figures to crew 2 whole ships with them. In the event in which these crew fight the other goblin ship, we have these purple dots that you can put on their heads just to differentiate them. To start, we have the masts, the sails. You can't really tell because they're black. You'll see better on the other ships, but there is a frame behind it. This is one beam. There's cross beams. We have the flags on the top, and then this little glow-in-the-dark spider. There's a few glow-in-the-dark pieces, being the spider, this one little dot at the top of the mast, and then on the front of all both of them, there's a little lantern taken directly from my last build. There is this little steering wheel here. It's important when it comes to the rules of the game, somewhat important. And then we have the railing along the edge. I did basically a different style of railing for every single one of these. This is made of a bunch of long bone pieces. Thank you, Ninjago sets. And I have this nice little method of connecting the 2 longer pieces by using a smaller bone, because I found out that these little smaller bones can actually fit nestled right snugly in between the longer ones, just because of the way that they tessellate. And I did the same thing in the front, so it makes a nice kind of smooth and continuous railing. And aside from that, that is just about all for the ships. It's all nice and tiled, and yeah, these are honestly the most boring because they're flat, and the reason for that is there's no multiple levels because there's 2 of them, and they're just for one player to use. That's why. But that was all for those ships. Now I'll move on to the next one. And here we have the, not player ship, it's the hero ship, the ship containing heroes, not monsters, just, there's one of them. There is a total of 6 heroes on it, all of them except for the rogue and the sage, because they don't really make sense for the game. Their, abilities don't work with the way the game is set up. But that'll be for the rules section. First thing first, we have the mast. They're white sails. Atop, we have a little black flag, and there's a rope connecting the 2 of them just to look nice, and you can see the kind of beams better. This is actually harder to get than it looks like. To get the one post going up in the middle and then being right in the center of all these. But that is the posts. There is a railing going around the edge made up of spears and bars and just kind of a bunch of stuff. There's a lot of brown and gold to represent wood and gold. We have cannons in the top and bottom. Can't really see it because of the shadow. Probably looks a little bit brighter later. But we have, again, another, I think, tillers. It's actually the technical term for this. We have a rudder in the back. That is super simple and also breaks very easily. Same thing with the sails. We have a little hole here, which is a ladder in it. You'll see that in a second. To go down to the lower decks, we have a couple barrels just for fun. You can go all the way to the front of the ship, and this one has a little bit more shaping to it than the other one, but I am not very good at shaping ships, which doesn't surprise anyone because I'm not a ship builder. And the top of this will come off so that you can access the lower deck of the ship. And it's pretty darn simple. I tried a new ladder technique using bucket handles. I think it would look better if there was more of them, but it works all right, and you get the idea. There's a bunch of tiles in the bottom. There's a little thing that actually does kind of hold it up, so that when you push minifigures down on it, it doesn't it doesn't stress the pieces. We have 3 little soldiers that are just little, basically 1-strength monsters that work for the heroes, that are down here firing the 4 cannons in the bottom. And yeah, there are actually completely holes in the sides for the cannons to fire through. We have this little box here. I didn't actually explain that last ship. It is for a game mode, which will be explained later. And again, all smooth and not much to see. But it looks nice, and it works well. And that is that ship. Alright, here we are. It's the big one. It is the Goblin Ship. The biggest of them, and honestly my favorite in terms of shaping. It actually looks a little bit more like a ship than the other ones. Color-wise, the hero ship looks better to me, but I do like the way that this one ended up. It's very big. The size was dictated by the railing that I used. I just used a big piece of flex tubing, I think it's flex tubing, to go around most of it. And we also have white sails with gray masts. Again, same kind of deal as the hero ship. And I did put this fun little symbol on the front, and this actually is a fun little bit of trivia. I'm curious if anyone actually knows what the symbol is and where it is from. Just a fun little thing. I capped it off with these weird little pieces just because I didn't have anything better that also connected to the tubing. There's a much larger deck because there is a whole lot of little goblins. We have same cannons, but 6 of them total. 3 in the bottom, 3 on the top. And then way back here we have, again, steering wheel and Goblin General. But again, nothing too special. I used more silver and various grays in this one. Oh, and rudder broke off. Oops. Alright. But that is basically all that the top of the ship has. Oh, I forgot to mention there is another rope connecting to these, and there's a red flag. I didn't really have any reason that I picked the color of flags I did. I just, found some flags. Right, that is that off. Now you can see the bottom. It is much more extensive than the other one. There is a proper little ladder using the technique that I've used in the past, which I think I stole from Chris Edwards. And then we have all of this. There's 2 support beams. This one's smaller just because it has, the smaller top because of what's underneath the ship, holding it together. And then we have 6 little goblins manning the 6 cannons. Again, there is a hole in the side of the ship so that they can actually poke out. And then we have, again, the box in the bottom. But, yep. Other than that, I think this ship is, again, shaped the best out of all of them. And it's the biggest, so it's fine. But that is just about all for that ship. Now I think that's the end of the cosmetic section. I will now move into the rules section of the video. And, yeah. Alright, on to the rules. So, the game is played on really any size of section. It should be delineated, like the edges or, some vague idea. I think in general the bigger the better, but not like, stupidly big. Because you need a fair bit of space to move these ships around just because of how big they are. So yeah, it uses Gasland's system. The Gasland system, if you're not familiar with it, is a great system. Very simpler than it looks. And it's just fun. It's meant for cars, but I'm using it for ships. And with a lot of modifications, however. So first things first, all of these ships are in Gear 3. They never change. They stay in Gear 3. They don't go less than that. They don't go more than that. And when they activate, they don't roll skid dice. They just pick a template. This is why you can tell this is not at all like normal Gaslands. But you pick a template. And the difference is when moving, you align the front of the template with the front of the ship, and then you align the front of the ship with the front of the template. Sorry, the back of the template with the front of the ship. So this means that the ship doesn't actually move from front to back, basically. It just moves like that. The reason for this is just because with Gasland's templates, if we were doing front to back, the ships would it would be impossible to have any kind of gaming space big enough to properly use this. So, like I said, ships are going to activate in gears 1 to 3 gears, but all figures, so you do them all individually, activate in gears 1 to 6. So there's a lot of people moving around. And then the cannons, again, I don't use Gasland systems for really any of the fighting. I just use Gasland system for the movement. Otherwise, it's basically just heroica. But first things first, everyone moves, and you don't do it like heroica. You don't if you move adjacent to a guy, you don't fight them. But anyway, so they move, you roll dice, they move around if they want to. Hopefully they don't need, there's not too much moving of figures in this game. And then you have the opportunity to shoot with small arms. Basically, I don't really know technically what it is, but it's just shooting. So you, up to 3 figures per team, basically, can target another figure within long, like Gaslands template. And then just roll the heroica die on the result of a sword or shield. They take a point of damage, or if they're a monster, they just die on a skull or a sword and skull. Nothing happens. So yeah, at first I did it where every figure could do this, and that really did not make the game fun. And then cannons activate. So you have to have a person controlling a cannon, and the cannon, and that person can't have shot with whatever small shooting in the previous phase. So cannons you measure them like Gaslands, you measure them from the side of the ship, and their range is double from the inside of the ship. And the cannons are in fact individual, so if you have a ship on either side, you can shoot all 8 cannons. It's not like Gaslands where you only have one weapon that shoots both sides. They're individual weapons, and you have to have a figure adjacent to a cannon in order to fire it. And the cannons only target ships. When you fire a cannon, if the hero ship, swords, shield, or sword and skull, the enemy ship takes damage for each cannon you fire. For monster ships, it's just swords and shields, so the sword and skull doesn't count for them. And then these are the health trackers I have. They're just health trackers, so the hero ship has, 14? And then the Goblin Ship has 16, and then the 2 black and white ships have 9 health each. And the game is played until you either destroy the ship, or your opponent has nothing left, no figures left. I have had instances in which there's been some weird endings, but now I know you're wondering, how do you actually fight between ships? So the way it works is, if you, at the start of the movement, when you would move, you can choose not to roll any dice and just place your figure within medium range on a different ship. And that's how you move between ships in this game. Otherwise, it would be kind of silly. Actually, jumping back real quick to the way that ships move, ships wipe out at 3 hazard tokens instead of 1. You still get 2 hazard tokens for a collision, but you don't take damage from collisions. When you get 3 hazard tokens, you still make a wipeout test as normal. If you wipe out, however, the ship just dies and everyone on it dies. But part of that's because it's really hard to amass hazards, since the only way you can get them is by performing hairpin or hard turn maneuvers. I know this is going to be very confusing for anyone who doesn't know how Gaslands works, but that's the point. The one other difference from regular heroica is the way that fighting works. Is when you move adjacent to a monster, you don't stop and fight it. You wait until after all cannons have fired, all shots have been fired, and then each player picks a one-on-one and starts resolving it. The reason for this is so that you can't have some weird scenarios in which, because you want to be the person rolling the dice, because when you're fighting, shield is better than sword and skull is better than skull, and you have better odds if you roll the dice. So that's the reason that each player gets to start picking one-on-ones, and each player rolls the dice an approximately similar number of times, which does mean that it's easier to gang up a lot of monsters on one hero. But I think that might be just about it, except for the one alternate game mode is, if you don't want to just go killy, you have these 4 little things with gold on them. You can just put them out on the board anywhere. I recommend putting the 4 in the middle and then the 2 just kind of scattered around. When your ship overlaps them, you put those 2 gold in little boxes that I have all over the ship. If you have an enemy adjacent to one of the boxes, they can pick it up. Just put the gold on the monster's head as they pick it up. And then the game lasts, I think, 12 turns. 12, not gear phases, 12 individual gears, so 2 rounds basically. And the person who has the most gold at the end of that wins the game. But I think that after that is just about it. I know it's a long rules section, but hey, if you didn't want to listen to the rules, you shouldn't have listened to the rules section. I think that is it for the video, so I will thank you very much for watching, and say to you goodbye.